In 2011, I got cast in a Paramount Pictures feature film comedy that was going to shoot down in Nicaragua. I remember calling up my dad the day I got cast after like 6 auditions and multiple chemistry tests because he had been the biggest support of my comedy career my whole life. So when I called him, I was kind of nervous to tell him about the character I was playing because he was this sort of sexually permissive best man, and he just lets out this huge laugh and he goes, "Nick, you gotta understand, it's Central America. Things are a little spicier down there." And over the next 2 years, we shot for 2 separate months down in Nicaragua. And then after we were finished with the shooting, I booked a trip to go back home to Denver, Colorado to go see my family. And I remember my dad picking me up at the airport. I was like boiling over with excitement to tell him all the stories of all the parrots and weird swimming in the ocean at night and crazy boat trips that we were on in Nicaragua and how much fun I had. So in the car, he drove me to this little guitar store and we strummed some guitars for a while. And then he drove me home because his wife had cooked us some dinner. And midway through dinner, he sort of got out. He wasn't feeling that well. And it didn't seem out of the ordinary. He just got up and he was like, "Hey, I'm not feeling so well. I'm gonna go to bed." And the next day I was at a movie with my mom. And when I left the movie, I got like 10 text messages, all from my dad's wife. And apparently, during the night, my dad got so ill that they had to go to the ER. And then they admitted him into the ICU and they didn't know what was happening. And I extended my trip, I stayed with him, and about a week later, we found out that he had a very rare and very terminal form of cancer that had metastasized in his stomach. I think as a son, you always kind of know that your parents are gonna die at some point. But it's a very strange feeling to know that they're gonna die imminently. And that was the moment that I knew my father was gonna die. And I had to go back to LA to finish up some business, and then I came back, and when I came back, the producers of this movie sent me with a very secret copy of this unfinished film that I was in so that I could show my father. But when I got back, my father was in hospice. And the first moment I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, I brought a copy of this movie. Paramount sent me with this secret copy, and I'd love to show you." And I remember he was like, "I would love to see it, but I want to see it when I'm the most lucid. I want to be the most coherent to understand it, to be able to watch it through." And he was on this mixture of drugs that made him really drowsy and then made him really loopy and then made him really pain-free. So he wanted to sort of watch it when he was right in the balance. And then like 2 or 3 days later, he just perks up and I was sitting next to his bed and he goes, "I think I want to watch your movie now." And I just went into a frenzy. I was like, yeah, let's watch it. So I put this computer next to his bed, and then I gathered my aunt who was there, and she sat down, and then he invited a couple of the hospice nurses in. He was a really charming guy, and he was like, "Hey, excuse me, do you want to come watch this secret movie that my son was in?" And I got even more nervous because this is a raunchy movie. And I noticed that his wife isn't in the room, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, do you want to just pause for a minute? Because your wife is out getting food. I think she'll be back any minute." And he was like very insistent. He was like, "No, let's just watch it now. I feel like watching it now. We can catch her up when she comes in." So here we are, like all huddled around this little iMac, and my dad is sort of, like sitting there. He gets situated in this little chair, and I'm like, "All right, guys, here we go." And I've never been more nervous watching a film in my life. I was just sweating the whole time and looking at my father, and he wasn't laughing. He was just sort of concentrating. And about halfway through the movie, his wife comes in the door, and I'm like, "Oh," and I pause it, and I welcome her in, and I'm like, "We're watching the movie," and she's really excited, and so she sidles up next to my dad, and then I try to catch her up, and I'm like, "Okay, so what has just happened?" So there was a crazy night last night, and my character and the bride's older brother had to drug the bride's sister because she knew too much, and my dad's wife, who's this like very strong, spiritual, feminist woman, looks over at me, shoots me this piercing stare and goes, "You drugged her?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is the worst choice. What am I doing?" I mean, I'm sitting here, my last memory to my dad is gonna be this terrible movie that I was in. And right when I'm having this panic attack, my dad perks up. My shrunken version of my father perks up and just goes, "They had to." And the whole room exploded. It was the biggest laugh of the whole watch. And it took all the pressure off. And we finished the movie, and then my dad gave this thoughtful analysis, and he really enjoyed it. And before he died, he got to see his son running around in a movie. He got to see his son be the man who he'd always supported with that big laugh. And I may be in a movie again, or I may never, but I don't think I'll ever have as good a premiere.
SoulPancake.